Okay, so thank you once again, and I welcome you to this talk on uh, statistical validation of machine learning algorithms. So you look at the title of the talk, and it's sort of quite general. So although as Dr. Amit said, I work in the areas of multimedia signal processing, and that was sort of tangentially related to this conference. So what I thought was I'll try to give you some general ideas and some general principles that should be applicable to almost all domains, including domains in bioscience, bioengineering, medical imaging, and things like that. So the talk is going to be quite general, right? So the conference is being held because we are in the era of machine learning, right? So you look at almost everywhere, and we have machine learning. I have listed down some areas here. These may not be even 10% of what's going on in the community, but anyway, multimedia signal processing, computer vision, chem informatics, medical imaging, bioinformatics, drug discovery, physics, and you name it. I mean, almost no area is untouched by machine learning these days, right? And in this talk, what I wanted to focus was on what are the implications of so much of research happening in these areas, and what are the implications of that. So of course there are several implications, theoretical implications, practical implications, but then the one that I sort of wanted to address was this multiplicity of a few things. So multiplicity of data sets, of algorithms, and also use cases. So because a lot of people are working in several application domains, what we find is there are let's say more than one data sets for each and every application, right? Likewise, we have a plethora of machine learning algorithms. ML is for machine learning. So machine learning algorithms, there are like more than 10 for a problem. If you look at object recognition and things like that, you might have even 30, 40 algorithms currently, right? And likewise, we have a lot of use cases or application scenarios in these different domains. So what has happened is, because of so much of happening in this machine learning area and its application in so many domains, we have had this multiplicity. And so what is the implication of this? Well, as I said, there are many implications. The one that I wanted to focus was, how do we really compare two or more machine learning methods in an application? Now, this question might sound, sort of innocent, and it might look trivial, but actually it's not. There are a few aspects that go into, comparing machine learning algorithms and, really drawing conclusions out of that. So this is the question that I would like to focus on, although not completely, but at least a few aspects of this question is what I would like to focus. So this is the question that we really want to address. How do we really compare, let's say, two or more machine learning algorithms for an application, let's say face detection or sequence analysis and things like that. I mean, the application is not really a constraint here. As I said, the principles that I'm sort of going to discuss, they are quite general purpose. Right. So when we talk of comparison of machine learning algorithms, there are a few aspects that would come to our mind. And the first one I believe would be prediction accuracy. Right. So as I mentioned there, prediction accuracy, and I have just taken a very artificial example there. ML1 means there is some machine learning algorithm one. Let's say it achieves 89.6% accuracy. Again, accuracy could be classification, regression, or it could be a mix of both. And then I've written ML2, which is achieving 88.2% accuracy, right? And these are the sort of numbers that you see in a lot of studies and in a lot of papers, right? And what we want to understand is, does ML1 really perform better than ML2, right? I mean, prima facie, yes, because it is having higher accuracy. So we would sort of, be inclined to conclude that that is the case. But then there are a few more things that we should consider before really making those conclusions. So prediction accuracy is, of course, probably the most widely used aspect of comparing two machine learning algorithms. But then there are few others. The second is generalization ability. So this generalization ability is probably a term which is widely used in machine learning community. We can even call it learning ability. So basically what it means is, has it really learned what has the machine learning algorithm really learned what it was supposed to learn, right? So for example, we take a simple example of face recognition, and let's say the algorithm is giving you nice results, and we want to understand, did it really understand to recognize faces, and how did it perform so well? Okay, so that's what we mean by learning ability or generalization. So basically, it might be performing quite well on a, let's say, test set of 1,000 images, but then can we guarantee that on 1,000 first image, it's actually going to perform as well? Well, actually, there's no guarantee, right? So this is one problem, which is of course widely acknowledged in the machine learning community. And in fact, it's not just a problem of generalization; it's also a problem of quantifying that, right? So can we quantify this? I mean, can we give a number, maybe let's say from 0 to 100, that this particular algorithm has 80% generalization, the other has only 20%, and things like that, right? So these are actually much more ambitious goals, I would say. We are not there yet, but ideally we would want something like that, right? So in general, we would look at generalization ability of a machine learning algorithm. The third aspect is interpretability. So as some of the previous speakers had alluded to this, Dr. Praveen in particular was talking about interpretability. So basically this is the debate, white box versus black box models, right? So white box, it simply means that we sort of understand what are the factors that it is taking into account to explain a decision. On the other hand, black box models are not amenable to such scrutiny. And most of the models that we have currently in use, basically neural networks, SVMs, and of course, deep learning, which is quite popular these days, all of them are unfortunately black box models. So the interpretability is an issue there. And again, this is a aspect that is quite widely acknowledged in the community. But then I just wanted to put that on record. So this is the third aspect. The final is actually, is it amenable for deployment? So if you are looking at it from an engineering perspective, where we really want to deploy a system. So if I'm going to develop a machine learning system for, let's say, face recognition, I really want to implement it on, let's say, mobile phone, or I want to implement it somewhere so that it's useful, right? So in that case, whether the implementation costs in terms of hardware and software are going to be within the budget and things like that, right? So that is also quite important if you have to compare two machine learning algorithms. So for example, if it is known that one algorithm is really not implementable because it just exceeds the budget, then you would sort of have negative comments about that, right? Even if it performs quite well, if you cannot really implement it or deploy it somewhere, then its utility would be really reduced. Okay, so what I've listed is 4 aspects of comparing machine learning algorithms. As we can see, comparing 2 or more ML algorithms is actually a multidimensional problem. It depends on the use case, so it depends on the application and what sort of scenario that we are looking at. But again, in this talk, I'm not looking at any specific application, so I've just written down these basic aspects that should be really used for comparing ML algorithms. One final aspect is this arrow that I've drawn here. Typically, what you find is in most studies and in most publications, prediction accuracy is the one which is really the focus. Because most of the time, authors and scientists talk about prediction accuracy and whether this algorithm is better than this and things like that. And unfortunately, the other aspects are not that well highlighted. So if you look at generalization ability or learning ability, there is much less analysis. If you go to interpretability, I guess the analysis is even less, and fewer and fewer authors actually bother to talk about that. And lastly, this deployment issue, I think again, this is mainly specific to engineering applications, so that is something that is not really discussed in, let's say, most of the studies. However, if you were to really develop an algorithm for deployment, I would say the order should be reversed. So it should be starting from whether it's really amenable for deployment. That should be your first question. Then you should look at whether you can really explain what's happening there, at least partially. So I understand that we cannot explain every decision, but then is there some sort of interpretability that we can inject into the model? Then how well does it really generalize? And finally, we can actually look at prediction accuracy. So what I'm trying to convey is that prediction accuracy should be one of the aspects and not the only aspect for actually comparing two machine learning algorithm. So this is one of the messages that I wanted to give, because quite a lot of times this prediction accuracies and things like that, they get the most attention, and other aspects are sort of not really addressed that well. So I just want to sort of focus on those aspects. So in this talk, I'm going to focus on the first two aspects, which is prediction accuracy and learning ability. These two, again, we could speak about them in terms of specific applications, but then since this talk was supposed to be positioned in a more generic sense, we are not sort of discussing these two. But then let's look at the first one. So prediction accuracy. So here, what we'll do is we'll talk about this uncertainty, which is the main focus of this talk. And why do we have uncertainty in data, right? So we will just talk about the sources of uncertainty, and then we'll build up why this uncertainty is useful to be considered. So here's the first point. As I mentioned, the target variable may not be deterministic. Now, I'm referring to supervised learning here, which means that we are having a signal or data for let's say that we want to analyze, and then we have a corresponding target variable for that, right? So it could be classification, it could be regression, right? So we have a target for a particular signal, and then we have a lots of such signals which we essentially call a database, right? So for example, it could be maybe medical imaging. So is the tumor present? So we could say 1, or is it absent? We could say no. But then interestingly, there will be many cases where the radiologist or the expert might himself or herself might not be sure that whether a tumor is present or not. This happens practically in a lot of situations. So in that case, we should probably have some sort of leeway for that. So maybe I'm just putting here a arbitrary notation 0.5. So that is what really demonstrates uncertainty, right? And as I said, this really cannot be avoided. You cannot have a situation where it was only that we could have 1 or 0 class, but then it would happen in many situations that you have such situations. Okay, informative, non-informative. Again, we might be looking at image data or video data, and we want to analyze whether this particular image is informative for a particular task. Okay, let's say medical diagnosis. Is this image useful? Because if it's not useful, I would simply discard it so that I need not store it on my hardware, and I would sort of save resources and things like that. So again, we have to decide whether it's informative, not informative. But again, there would be cases where we are not quite sure. So we don't know whether it is that image is informative or not informative. So that is the uncertain part of this decision making. Likewise, there can be many examples. Quality ratings. Basically, in multimedia signal processing, you have this multimedia quality. So there you have a continuous scale. So basically, a video might be rated as on a scale of 1 to 5. I would rate it at 4. Somebody might say it's 3.5, right? So again, there is some sort of a disagreement happening between the ratings, right? And so on. You could have an instrument where there is some sort of tolerance, or there could be some sort of error, so maybe plus minus delta and things like that. So the point is, the target variable that we typically look at in supervised machine learning may not be deterministic, okay, in several applications. But then in many applications, we simply take it to be deterministic. So this is one drawback that we should avoid, and we should consider uncertainty in the target variable. The second point is, of course, test finite sample of test cases. So essentially, when we are training a machine learning model and then we are testing it, because of practical limitations, we really cannot test it on an infinite number of test cases, right? So that's not possible. So we just take a finite number of test images or test sequences or whatever, and then we just test that, and then we try to conclude which algorithm is better and which algorithm is poorer and things like that. Again, because it's a finite sample that we are looking at, this would actually bring in uncertainty, right? That's what will happen. So because if it's infinite, then that uncertainty tends to 0. Otherwise, there would always be uncertainty because of a finite number of test cases. And finally, we will have uncertainty in the predictions also. So basically, you have a machine learning algorithm. It cannot be that it's 100% sure that it's predicting correctly. If you look at the working, there is a probabilistic model, or we can look at the Bayesian inference analysis and things like that, and we can actually say, okay, that's prediction that has been made by a machine learning algorithm that has a certain error, or that may have a certain confidence interval and things like that. So what I'm trying to say is, when we are trying to predict 2 or more algorithms, we should be careful about these 3 types of uncertainty that may exist, because they're actually going to have implications on the conclusions that you eventually draw. So that brings us to the next question: why should uncertainty matter? So what I've done is I have just taken a couple of examples here to illustrate the point, and not go into details of that. But I hope that would be good enough to convey the basic idea. So here's an example that I've taken. Again, this is from my own research, but I think the principle can be applied to various areas, including